I travel a lot right now. I'm in England. I feel like if I had chosen or been led somewhere else, there would have been somewhere else, let's just say Australia for the sake of this metaphor. If I went to Australia, because that's what I thought my guidance was telling me, I think there would have been a whole set of lessons and opportunities where I would have reached similar things that I needed right now in my life purpose, but it just would have been through other people.
It's only when you get involved with somebody do your parents' traumas come up, because all you've seen growing up is the dynamic of your two parents, right? And if you're just by your own, being single and maybe dating with no commitment, then you're still just doing you. It's only when you get close with somebody that the only real experience you have is from your parents that will show when you're in a relationship dynamic. And then you'll see things that work and don't work, which may trigger what you saw in your parents, or unconscious traits might come out that you had no idea what's going on in your parents' lives that you now have to essentially change or repeat.
I definitely think that if you just face the decision in front of you, you can go much farther. I think that a lot of times we limit ourselves with goals and with plans because there's so much that we can't see from our limited perspective. But if you just take the choice that's in front of you and figure out which thing in your life is flowing and you keep following that, I like to think of it as like a thread you pull, and you just pull it every day a little bit. It's just going to take you so much farther on a path that you might have no idea that you're going on. People get so afraid of the unknown that they can't live in that moment to moment, but really it's in that divine surrender and trust that's where, like you said, that quick evolution happens.
Just quickly, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who still listens to the podcast. I started 4 years ago, and since then I've had over 1 million downloads. I get 5,000 downloads per month, and I've had over 200 different guests. So a massive thank you to everyone who still listens. If you could please do me a favour, if you could rate and review the podcast, that will be amazing because it helps get the podcast out to new, conscious people like yourself. And my goal is to awaken as many people around the world. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's YesKingOliver. Should you wish to see what I get up to on my day-to-day moments. Back to the episode. I was on the phone to my friend for 3 hours yesterday, and she's someone that I have a really good connection with. And we're both people that are leaders and like to be in control. And often every time something comes in our life, or every time a person comes in our life, or every bad thing that happens, or every good thing that happens, we always have to find meaning to everything. And we were basically concluding that, does everything have to have a meaning? Is it just the way it is? And yet, because we are humans that want to feel like we've got control over our life in a life where there is really no control, that we find meaning and reasons for everything, so we feel like we've got control. Otherwise, we have to embrace the fact that we are no different to our wild animal, just sort of out there in the wild, eating, drinking and fighting like everyone else. And yet there is no certainty of anything in life. We could get eaten at any moment. An asteroid could hit us. There could be a flood. There could be a fire that could destroy us. And, you know, is there really just no purpose to anything? Or is there some kind of like divine path that we are just following, which means it is mapped out, which means that everything that comes into our life has got a reason?
I think that I believe that everything has a reason, but also that nothing matters. I feel like the nothing matters has been harder for me to get behind as I get older. But I realize I think that everything is divinely orchestrated, that everything has purpose. But at the same time, it really doesn't matter because either way, you're going to get where you're going. I think sometimes in the spiritual kind of world, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to make the right choice, to make sure we're following the synchronicity. We don't want to like stray off the path. And I like to think of it as life as a GPS system. So if any choice you make, you're going to get rerouted to where you're meant to go. It's just that maybe it's going to add an hour onto the onto the, the timeline. But I think that the more you think that nothing matters, it takes a lot of pressure off to be perfect and to get it right. Because I think that's the human in us, like you said, that's just trying to control the outcome.
I've never heard it said like that, where we're just the navigation system and it will reroute. So it's like we can choose to go down that path because it says it will be an hour and 50 minutes, or we can choose to go down the other path where it's even longer because there's roadworks and there's ducks crossing the road and the roads are shut, or whatever reason is. We can choose to do that. That's a choice, but it's going to take a little longer. Ultimately, we will end up back on the path that we are supposed to go down. So that basically means whatever's in front of us, we can choose to take advantage of it or not. And if we don't, another thing will come up that hopefully we will take advantage of, and we will ultimately end up in the place that we're supposed to be. So let's say we are seeking this perfect partner and he is at a friend's university, and one friend says, oh, let's go out tonight at a pub. And if you went to that pub, then it would end up leading to going to the university. But instead you're like, oh, I don't want to go to that pub. I want to go to the cinema. So you go to the cinema, you didn't go to the pub, but then next week the pub will come up again. And then if you choose to go to the pub, it will lead on to going to the university, which you will then find your perfect person. So you're saying that all these things will eventually come back around if the end goal is for us to get there, and that we should take the pressure off ourselves of making things align perfectly all the time, following a feather, following a number, and that it isn't the end of life if we don't follow that thing, because it will reoccur if the end goal is to get us to the said destination.
Yeah, exactly. And I also feel like I travel a lot right now. I'm in England. I feel like if I had chosen or been led somewhere else, there would have been somewhere else, let's just say Australia for the sake of this metaphor. If I went to Australia, because that's what I thought my guidance was telling me, I think there would have been a whole set of lessons and opportunities where I would have reached similar things that I needed right now in my life purpose, but it just would have been through other people. So I feel like zooming out even more of any way you go, you're going to get what you need to get. You're just going to get it through a different vessel. Maybe it's going to be gentler. Maybe it's going to be rougher, and I just think that you're going to get what you're meant to get. And it depends on, I think, where your soul's at. If you're ready for an easy lesson, most of us aren't. Most of us are so used to suffering that we choose unconsciously kind of the longer, harder role. And I think that anywhere you go, you're going to get what you're meant to get at that point in your life, in your astrology, and your evolution. You're just going to get it through different people, places, and things.
See, I've never had a relationship growing up, and as a result, I didn't know what a relationship was. All I've ever known is me going out and doing me and getting what I want, right? Never knowing about the compromise with the other person and how to communicate and blah, blah, blah. So when opportunities came, I got into, they weren't relationships, but they wanted the title. And so I just trusted the universe, which is if someone brings something to me, what's the lesson? I said, yes, I'll give you the title. Nothing changes. We still are doing exactly what we were doing. And then let's see what happens. Gave him the title, and that's when huge life changes happened. Dragged me down a path which I didn't plan to go down, wouldn't want to go down again. But as a result of going down those paths, I am now more equipped for relationships at this moment in my life. So now would I go down that path? Absolutely not. So at that time, my soul was ready to be taken down a path, to go through what I went through, to come out the end, to know, okay, I now need to say respect and value myself more. And rather than just going out and dating everyone for the sake of dating, like, learn to respect yourself. You don't need to do that all the time. Just wait for what you truly, really want and be patient rather than just going out and getting things short term, because deep down you may not think you're really deserving of the end goal. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, relationships are very evolutionary. I feel like it's so easy to be enlightened and a monk when you're on your own, and then relationship really gives you so much opportunity to grow because of you have a whole other person in your energy field all the time, even if you're not physically with them. And so I find it really beautiful that there are times in the journey where you're alone and you need to evolve that way. And then there are times when in relationship, you might grow way more in a short chunk, or it might take longer. It's just all about the type of journey you're looking for, but relationships are so valuable.
And what I found is that it's only when you get involved with somebody that do your parents' traumas come up? Because all you've seen growing up is the dynamic of your two parents, right? And if you're just by your own, being single and maybe dating with no commitment, then you're still just doing you. So only when you get close with somebody that the only real experience you have is from your parents, that will show when you're in a relationship dynamic. And then you'll see things that work and don't work, which may trigger what you saw in your parents, or unconscious traits might come out that you had no idea what's going on in your parents' lives that you now have to essentially change or repeat. And so it's like a lesson of, okay, our parents did our best to cover up all the pain and just focus on doing the best for the children. Okay. But that's energy that's in you that you don't even realize. And so now when you find somebody, you're going to be doing things that your parents were doing behind the scenes that isn't healthy. So it's a chance to change these patterns when they come up with you or repeat them. And obviously the end goal is to become whole and enlightened, where all the things you don't want in your characteristics have been changed to be the as perfect of a human being as you can, where your environment also appreciates that.
Yeah, definitely. And also acceptance. I think that there can be this like striving for perfection in spirituality, where like the more I go, I feel like I tried to do that for 8 years. And then the last 6 months, it's also been just accepting the parts of yourself that you feel are less than, because you have to accept something first, I think, before you can change it. You have to like shed, because it's like your inner child. You can't just say, get out of here, like this broken part of you. It's, hey, this broken part of me, come here, let me love you, let me hold you, so you can actually integrate into a healthy way into me, instead of being, I feel like a lot of people are just trying to like get rid of the ego, get rid of the shadow. And it's more about loving it, accepting it, and then alchemizing it into something that's more healthy than, you know, the things we grew up with.
What's very interesting right now is that I don't think I've worn a hat on the podcast before, and I don't think anyone's worn a hat as a guest. And so I've put my hat on, obviously, because you've got your hat on. So the universe is just like, again, I always follow just intuition and gut. And when you do that, you realize that we're in an energy field that we're not in control of, right? Or we're operating on everyone else's thoughts, and they're operating on everyone else's thoughts. And so this thing about always trying to work out why I put a hat on, why I took the hat off, right? It's humans trying to control everything. When the reality is that, as you say, we're just going towards the end destination. And if, let's say, when you translate that into energy, it's you're wearing a hat, frequency. I now need to wear a hat, frequency. That's the end destination, to make those energies align, whether it's a partner, whether it's a job, and there's a job vacancy over there, and you need to go over there. Everything will always work out. It's just, do you resist it and then go the other way where there's roadworks? Or do I just go in my wardrobe as soon as I think of a hat, not question, I wonder why I put my hat on, right? Because then that's going down the roadworks. I'm still getting to this point where, oh, I might end up putting the hat on, but don't have to question everything. Just let life flow, and it will take pressure off you.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of the times it's the decisions we make that have no reason that are always the most remarkable. The things that you're like, huh, I wonder why. And it's just like, the more that you can actually follow those pings that come out of nowhere, I find that's the universe speaking to me directly, versus when my mind's trying to construct it myself.
So at nighttime, I've been going back into deep meditation, where before I go to bed, I would just disconnect from my body, and I can't feel my body. So I keep it so still for like 5-10 minutes where I can't feel it. My body is just like, it's lost, right? And all I'm aware is, okay, I'm in my bed and I can't feel my body. And when I reach that certain frequency, my TV clicks, and I can ask questions like, you know, what am I going to be doing tomorrow? And I'll go through the options of, will I go to the gym? Will I go to the spa? And it will click based on the answer. So like spiritual people have like the dials of things where, pendulum, where it swings up and down for yes and round for no. It's the same thing. So I can make the TV click, and I can be like, now, and it will click. So I have this ability to control my TV and make it click based on my energy. And years ago, I used to think that was my grandma's spirit. She was here looking out for me, and I'd be like, Grandma, if you're here, click the TV if I'm going to meet somebody tomorrow, you know, and it'll click. And I'd use that to follow my intuition. So rather than just putting the hat on, it'll be, I'll get the dowser out. Okay, grandma, should I
Yeah.
put the hat on? If it says yes, it will swing. And if it says no, it won't. And that's how I operated. And I used to find or have to find meaning in everything to do something rather than just doing it. And I found that when you were on that path of just doing it versus finding a reason, you literally ascend into your future self. Because I believe that there's like an energy path written out, as if like you're going from the end of the country to the other. That map is written out. Now, if you just get in the car and drive, you can just get there quickly. If you stop off at KFC and stop off for a wee and, you know, stop off and look at the statue on the right hand side, you unnecessarily prolong your path. And just by getting on that path and just thinking and doing, you'll end up getting to the destination far quicker, which essentially is just evolution, involvement, enlightenment, and getting as much wisdom as you can to basically ascend into the next, you know, realm of life.
Yeah, I definitely, excuse me, I definitely think that if you just face the decision in front of you, you can go much farther. I think that a lot of times we limit ourselves with goals and with plans because there's so much that we can't see from our limited perspective. But if you just take the choice that's in front of you and figure out which thing in your life is flowing and you keep following that, I like to think of it as like a thread you pull and you just pull it every day a little bit. It's just going to take you so much farther on a path that you might have no idea that you're going on. I never thought I was going to be a healer. That was not ever on my bingo card. So I could have never written that on my, you know, my goals for the year. And so I used to be so OCD, so A-type, so planning. And now I like am so non-committal because I'm just like, I want to know in that moment what I feel and where it's going to lead me. And obviously it leads me to England. It leads me all over the world to all this magic. But I think that people get so afraid of like the unknown that they can't live in that moment to moment, but really it's in that divine surrender and trust that's where, like you said, that quick evolution happens.
I look back at all my spiritual friends, right? And a lot of them, they don't really work and they don't like pressure and stress. And so they just sort of get by, make a bit of money when they need to, maybe do a festival or whatever. And I worked out there's a pattern that's very common with all of them. It's any bit of stress or pressure, they avoid, right? And so when I think about just flowing and going with feeling, as long as you do that, I don't think there will be pressure and stress because essentially we're supposed to be guiding towards the feeling that makes us feel good all the time. And if you have like a script where, okay, I've got to do this today and that tomorrow, well, you might not want to answer all those emails today. And you might not want to be on your computer for hours setting up a website. So the spiritual person would sort of just, oh, it doesn't feel right. I'm going to flow to the right. Okay. And then they wouldn't necessarily do that. And then their friend will be like, hey, let's come out and do some kirtan, or let's go to a sound bath, and they'll float over there and it's all lovely in harmony. But then if you look at their life in the grand scheme of things, are they evolving or are they running from the resistance, which is there to teach them something and to build their character? You know, because I always just like to flow, but I'm also aware that you can't just flow forever because we need some like stability and grounding.
And also so much of the growth is in the discomfort. So I agree with you there. I was really into Abraham Hicks for a long time and I loved it. But then I was like, you can't always reach for the higher vibrational thought because a lot of the times all the work you need to do is in that rock bottom. Like you said with your relationship, if I knew what was here for me in England, I would have been like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to do that. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I'm so grateful for it. But as humans, you know, we're just like little children. We don't always know what's best for us. So if we knew it was going to be difficult, we'd be like, no, thank you. And so I agree with you. A lot of spiritual people I know too are kind of like this tumbleweed energy. And I think it's the discernment of the two. It's following the flow of where you're being led, but not just giving up because something's hard. Because I'm the same as you. Like I go straight. Well, I don't know if you're like this, but I go straight into, like, if I'm afraid to do something, I'm going straight in because I feel like that fear has power over me. And I feel like if I'm feeling resistance to something that keeps showing up, I'm like, why do I have resistance? So I feel like I always go into that because I know that's where the evolution is.
Yeah, it's like I look at it as God is testing me and I'm going to be rewarded if I face the fear versus run from the fear. And actually, when I think back to a lot of my, as you call it, tumbleweed friends, they've got trauma that they don't even know they have, that they're not dealing with. for example, a dad wound, like they have it, but they're not addressing it. They're just moving forward with it. And they're wondering why they keep attracting the same partners that basically reflect their dad, and then they don't go anywhere. And so, yeah, I'm somebody who faces that resistance because I know from experience that the growth is the resistance. What are you specifically doing in England, and how did you end up here?
So I've been traveling for about a little over a year and a half. I had a really kind of stable life in Los Angeles, and then my intuition told me to move. And I've kind of been on this crazy, I've lived in over like 30 places in the last year and a half. And so England, what happens with me is I'll get a random thought about something, and then everything around me will start informing that thought. So that's what happened with England. And I came here thinking I'd finish my novel, maybe meet a partner. And instead, I'm a little Leo and I'm from Las Vegas, so I love the heat. Instead, I was put in this really cold, dark winter, no car, no, like a few friends, but basically complete isolation. Everything. I did this really pretty hardcore food reset. So like no sugar, no caffeine, no gluten. So basically anything that I could distract with was stripped from me. And I was just really faced, I've had so many dark nights of the soul and like beautiful moments, but clearly there was still another layer of it that needed to be looked at. And within this 5 months of dark isolation, I have just completely blown through. I did the artist way. I don't know if you've ever done it, but I did that here. And I think I went deeper because of it. And it, like, my sleeping has changed. My depression has changed. My diet has changed. Like, I am a completely different person than I was 5 months ago. And it was so uncomfortable, and it was lonely and scary at times and frustrating, but it was so necessary because it's so easy for us, even if you're spiritual, to still distract with life. I'm a big nature person. So even here, like, I don't like going out when it's this cold. So even like my nature was taken. And so I had to find that spark of joy within, with nothing to lean on. I usually go and water a lot or walks a lot or see movies or see friends, but I didn't even have a car for like 3 months. So it was like my little fire is what I imagine, like, went out, and I had to find the spark within myself sitting completely alone. But now I'm like, I have that spark with me for the rest of my life. So anywhere I go, I will be fine, and home is here. But definitely, if I'd known that was the 5 months I was going to be in, I probably wouldn't have signed up for it. But it's one of the most valuable lessons I've had since like ayahuasca in 2019, like such exponential growth.
So what are you specifically doing in England? Like,
literally, I just followed my intuition.
Right, so you're not putting on like facilitating anything or classes or whatever, you just come to England?
Yep.
Right, okay.
My whole business is online, so I can go wherever. Yeah.
Okay. So on that, it's interesting because 10 days ago, the same person who I was having these conversations with about is there meaning for everything, I told her randomly, impulsively on a phone call, I'm going to give up caffeine, porn, crisps, dating apps, and masturbating, right? Just like that. 5 things that I do out of habit, which releases dopamine, which my brain just thinks about all the time. I'm like, okay, this is getting too much here. And just like social media, I came off Instagram because I'm just on it, replying to a message. And before I know it, I'm watching some stupid crap about a penguin like jumping off a building, right? I'm like, this is nonsense. So I decided to take out all the things that my brain has been depending on for quite a while as a way to reset my brain, my dopamine levels. As you know, when you have dopamine one way, your brain will counteract the chemical the opposite. So when you come off that drug, for example, you're actually depressed. And so you take the drug more. Whereas if we can just balance out the dopamine levels, then there's no problem. So I became aware that I'm just doing things out of habit. I'm not getting any fulfillment anymore. And I thought, right, this has got to end. And I'm on day 10 now. I'm finding like I'm lagging, right? I'm slightly more horny, but I know that I'm not going to break that pattern, and it's reinforcing to me the strength of my mind. I always claim that, powerful human on the planet, right? Powerful minded human on the planet. I'm like, well, if I can't do this, no one else has got any hope. So this is also a way of showing me what is society going to be in the future. Because if I can't get through these 30 days, there isn't much hope for many people. which means there's some type of DNA evolution programming in us to essentially become extinct, or for the reset. Like, I heard somebody say about the Los Angeles fires. If you think about a lot of rich, powerful people live in LA, right? Is it the universe's way of balancing out the rich and the powerful for, say, bad that they've done in this life? Everything has a way of balancing out, and they said that there's no wars anymore, so there's too many humans, and as a result, global warming's getting worse and worse and worse. And some say that you can't just have everything electric and, remove the cows and do all this other stuff, because the problem is just simply too many humans. And yeah, I think we're going down a place where, are we losing control of ourselves because there's an external force that is in control of us? And I don't mean like social media companies where they know the science behind dopamine and, is there another force out there that is trying to balance out something that's been imbalanced?
It's definitely interesting. I'm like from Los Angeles, so I know so many people that are not like rich, evil people that have lost everything.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to watch it. My whole family lives in LA. They've been evacuated. Like there's so many people that are dreamers and incredible people that live there. And I think unfortunately it has more to do with like poor leadership in the country or in the state that's been there for a long time. But I know what you're saying, like with natural disasters in general, like they're obviously increasing kind of across the spectrum, across the world. And so there always is that question, is it Mother Nature, fighting back, or is it a balance, or is it like man-made? There's so many conspiracy theories with all these things that it's actually man. And so it's just one of those things that I don't know if there's so much information of everything. And I think information is so beautiful, but also I think that a lot of times people have lost the ability to discern what's true to them, because someone will see a video and they'll just decide it's a fact. And it's like, you can basically find a video and science to back up the complete opposite two things. That's just the world we live in. And now you can make things fake and all these things. So I think that people need to really get back to that ability to get still and to be able to, like you said, fast from things they're addicted to, so they can just get clear on themselves of what is me, like, what am I don't think there's anything wrong with pleasure, but I think addiction is the issue. So it's like you take things out so you can bring them back in a healthy way, like caffeine or sugar or different things, but it's when you need it, and it's the only thing that's bringing you joy that you need to take it, because it's ultimately just about, like, you need to know what you actually want. Are you reaching for the crisps because it's a habit, or because it's just, like you just want some one day? But you have to like get it all out of the system first to get clear on that.
Yes, that you don't know, am I reaching for coffee because it's 12 o'clock and my brain's used to coffee, or am I actually tired? And am I actually tired, or am I overslept because I had too much sleep? And so you don't know what is real unless you kind of break it all down. And
or am I just bored?
Huh?
Or am I just bored?
Yeah, or am I just bored? And then when I think about how, I used to have 5 packs of crisps a day. So the more I have, the more my brain would want crisps. And then because I know to think and do, because you're supposed to think and then, do it, and then wherever you end up. Did I convince myself that because I'm thinking and I'm doing that, I'm aligned? So if I think about another pack of crisps or coffee, am I kind of keeping up the alignment with the universe? And if I don't, then it's going to stay in my head and I'm not where I need to be. However, to get out of my addiction, when I actually really had like a crisp addiction, I knew that I had to act on the last thought, and then eventually I'd have no more thoughts, because the guilt thought would kick in, which is, you had 5 packs of crisps and you said you were going to give up. So now that's like the 6th thought. So the next day when I think about crisps, that first thought kicks in, and then I might end up having only 4 packs. And eventually, if you keep doing the last thought that comes into your head and you've added in, we don't want to be doing this because of XYZ, I realized that the time between thinking about that thing, and that could be for anything, it could be dating app, porn, whatever, your brain just sort of doesn't think about it as much. And if you can give yourself a period of time where your brain just doesn't think about it for ages, you sort of lose, your brain doesn't crave it anymore because it doesn't know what it is. Like I reset my gut microbiome by taking these like gut pills because I used to get spots if I have like too much wheat and too much dairy. But now if I have that, I don't break out as much because I gave my gut enough time to reset.
Mhm.
So there's a power in giving a reset to the thing that we are dependent on
Mhm.
and then introducing it slowly,
Mhm.
but just not getting obsessed with it. Or because like our brains get attached so quickly to so much that gives us any feeling. Like
Mhm.
if we're texting a new person we're dating, we're looking at the app as he read it. Like fucking hell, what a waste of time that is. It could be on a walk, you could be painting, but you look at the phone every 5 minutes. Our brain just can't help itself.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's just I always love the quote, it's about choosing what you want most over what you want right now, because I feel like you're still choosing pleasure, you're just choosing pleasure in like the long run versus that immediate dopamine hit. And like you said too, with fasting with something, that's how it was for my food reset. I took all this stuff out for 6 weeks, and then she did muscle testing, and I could bring most of it back in a moderate way. So it's just about not, for me, I always think of like what has power over me. And for me, food is like my big one because I don't drink, I don't really do drugs, I'm celibate. So it's like food's kind of like the one thing. And when I took it away, I got very depressed because I realized how much I was needing it for my emotional support. And so I think that that's on the other side of taking things away, is you see what you're actually leaning on it for. When do you reach for the food? It's like, oh, when I'm stressed or when I'm lonely. And so then you have to sit with that emotion instead and say, okay, I have to find a different way to nurture this feeling that's not that quick dopamine hit. And then, yeah, that's just like an uncomfortable process, but then you're actually getting to the root cause. And then you can bring the food back in because it was never the food's fault. It was my dependence on the food. And so it's just, nothing is really bad. It's all about moderation, but it's beautiful to allow yourself this space underneath those addictions to see, well, why that's there.
So for example, it is your brain craving dopamine because say you have depression and it's
Mhm.
not the thing that's giving you the hit, such as sugar, sweets, or the dating app. So if you take out those things that are giving you the dopamine, you're left with yourself. And when your body resets, you won't then crave the thing that gave you the hit. So it's not the thing, it's not the app or the crisps or the alcohol. It's our brains lacking the natural state of dopamine, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think that it's creating more dopamine with working out, with meditation. There are other ways to self create it. And I think that that is the thing that's so important. I looked at my life, that month I was having a really hard month here. And I was like, oh, I'm not working out. And I know for me, I have a lot of energy. I'm like a firecracker. So I need that grounding. Oh, I can't go out, to nature like I normally do, which means I need to do more visualizations of earthing and grounding. And so it's like finding the ways within yourself. Oh, I don't have a lot of friends here. I need to be calling my friends from home more to create that connection. So it's just thinking like, how can I create
Hmm.
that dopamine inside of myself instead of relying on putting something in my body?
What's come to me is right, we should all have a default list of, say, 10 things we do that we know provenly will get us into a happy state when we are feeling depressed or lonely or lost. So if, say, next week you're in your house and it's dark outside and it's freezing and you're feeling a bit depressed, we go to the 10-step to happiness program, and it's like, right, call 5 friends from Los Angeles,
Yeah.
make a smoothie, um go and find a random cat on the street and feed it. Go and give money to a homeless guy. And then we will get those dopamine hits that we otherwise would get from food and sugar, to the point where we won't even think about the food and the dating apps and the sugar because we're spending all day going out feeding the homeless guy, finding the cat, 3 hours on the call to your friends back home, that you're not even thinking about it because now you're going to bed. And so it's like, well, I haven't even thought about any of that stuff for
Mhm.
24 hours. And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, what was making me think about that stuff before? Boredom, sat at home, wanting something to happen, going to the default feeling that you get pleasure from, such as the apps and the websites and TikTok or whatever. So, we're not doing things that give us natural dopamine hits like ice baths and saunas and gym and exercise. And just like walking half an hour. It's amazing what it does to us, even though we don't think it's doing anything to us, but we
Mhm.
don't realize because it just seems so natural, but it is what we're all missing and seeking. And this is what all these companies are taking advantage of, the fact that we're not exercising, we're on our phone, we're sat on our phone, getting flooding of dopamine, and we're addicted.
Yeah, and it's hard too. Like even as a spiritual person, my whole business is virtual and I'm a content creator. So just by like just business, I'm writing a novel, which is also on my laptop. So it's like just to doing my bare minimum, I am on my screen so much. And so you have to realize that then after my business is done for the day, if I'm then scrolling, if I'm then watching movies, I'm just basically on screens for 10 hours straight. And you don't clock it because you're like, oh, I'm working, which is good. That's true. But you are still staring at a screen, which is not what our bodies were made to do. And it happened so quick since COVID. At least for me, I was doing in-person stuff and now I'm doing virtual. I love the freedom of virtual, but I have to realize sometimes I need to make up for this massive jump of having all this human connection in person and now being on my screen so much. I've even thought about like writing my book, but like it doesn't work for me. I have to type. But it's like we have to get outside. We have to look at the sun. We have to paint or just do things that are not on screens. Even if like I'm writing my book, yeah, that's creative, but I'm still on a screen again. So really just trying to clock how many hours a day do you want your body to be ingesting electronic energy?
Yeah, and there's something that I think about often. Obviously, to maximize money, going online is the way. But it's like I don't want to spend and have my business primarily based on a screen and people paying on a screen. I'd rather be broke and be in person. But then I'm an entrepreneur, so I want to make as much money as I can. So then I'm torn between, okay, I can make loads of money online, or if I do it in person, there's only like certain amount of spiritual people within like fucking 20 miles, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's not going to get me fucking like, you know, big house, whatever. But then, so, you know, there is a balance. So, for example, my balance would be I do online, say twice a week to get the extra money for like, you know, nice stuff. And then you sort of just base the real life work on just small social groups. And it won't be half as much money as you get online. You can probably make a week's worth of money online that you get in a day. But to keep sane and to keep that balance and not lose the connection, I personally think for me, doing that is my compromise. Otherwise, it's too easy just to do online every day because you're making so much more. And then end of the day, got all the money in the bank account and you're sat at home by myself. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm missing something. And then it's like, it's human connection. And then that's when you realize you can't put a price on human connection.
Yeah. And I would say it's different for everybody because I was really resistant to online for a long time. And that was one of the things I mentioned earlier that spirit kept saying, like, this is the way, that I kept being like, no, no. And for me, once I surrendered to that, I am so much happier how I am right now. And I think it's just a matter of, I don't look at it as like I can make more money online and less money in person. I think of I can impact more people. My actual impact and my reach is exponential online. I used to be so against social media until the spirit kept saying, get on it. And I was like, ugh. But now I reach, over 1 million people a month. And I could never do that, right? At least in the beginning in person. And so I think of like how many people in the world could use help. If I want to be a vessel for that help, I'm going to surrender to the current situation of the world, which is online. And then I'm going to eventually, once I settle somewhere locationally, start doing more retreats and speaking engagements for that human connection that you're talking about. But I do find once you release the resistance to it, I have incredible, like monthly gatherings with my circle and my community, and we connect, like obviously it's not in person touching each other, but I think it's just, I have to be really conscious since this is the path that I chose, that I'm getting that other connection in other ways. Like I have a great friend in England and we do a ton together. And I just think that I need to make sure that I'm fueling both if I'm going to go the virtual route. It just takes a little bit more effort from me for sure. I'm going to LA, beginning of February, just because I need to see my family. It's been like, 5 months. And I'm like, I just need that charge up. I need to just see people that know me and love me. And, they're not new. And so I just think it's making sure that you're getting all of it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of seeing it. That it's almost like I'm sacrificing a short-term thing that I want for greater like than me. So serving more people going online. So it's, yes, I could be more happy in person, making less, but by going online, I'm impacting more people in a most amazing way. And so it's worth that. So again, it goes back to, how do you see the same thing? You know, you can see something as it is what it is, but you can see it as the bad or the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's why I love that I feel like I let God make all the decisions, because it takes the pressure off. Because
It's amazing.
I've resisted so many things in my life, and I'm like trying to do this thing over here, and then this thing's like calling, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And it like is so hard. And then I go to this thing and it's so easy. And then just because it's easy, I'm like, I'm going to try this thing again, just because that's human nature. And I'm now getting to the point where I'm like, this thing is calling to me, and it's so easy and it's so impactful. So I'm just going to do that thing and then see where that thing leads. Because for me, this is the thing over here is Reiki and service. This thing is my books and my album and my movies. And I'm like, I'm just going to do the thing that is serving me and I'm serving through, and who knows where it will lead. But I think that the older I get, I just want less resistance. And so I feel like we were talking about earlier, I can kind of feel the discernment on if I'm resisting it because it's a me thing, or I'm resisting it because it's the wrong thing. And so again, like the more clear you get with yourself, I think you're just able to hear within yourself more of like, oh, I need to go through this discomfort, even though I don't want to, versus like, oh, this is not the path. This is not the way for me.
So the term let go and let God would imply go to the path of least resistance, right? But you're saying that you would choose to go the path of resistance to see what lessons are down there. So how do you differentiate when you let go and let God, and when you go against what God is trying to get you to do, to then go back to the path of least resistance?
So when I say let go and let God, I'm saying paying attention to what is working and where the signs are pointing me versus what my ego wants. So it's more about like, this thing keeps coming up that I don't really want to do, but I'm paying attention that like all of the energy in my life is leading towards it. So I'm going to let go and let God, even though maybe it's not my top priority, because everything is kind of, it's like the flashlights are pointing, this is the way. So that's what I mean, where it's like, I'm so in tune with the universe and how my signs and my symbols and my intuition work, that even if something doesn't make sense to me, I will do it over what I logically think I should do, because that's just how much I trust God shows me what to do through symbols. And a lot of the times he'll show me things I don't want to do, but I will do them, because I always find that through that, just like we talked about with fear, is what I actually want. It's just wrapped in a way that I wouldn't have wrapped it myself if I could prepare it for myself. So it's really just about listening. And like when I listen, I'm listening the next step. People are always like, where are you going to be in December? I'm like, yo, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing this month. Like I'm taking it month by month, because I feel like God is building this deep, deep faith in me of like, will you literally just listen to me no matter what's going on with money, what's going on with relationships, and just follow me step by step. And I do, no matter what I personally, Taylin Fiore, think about it, I will do it.
Right, let's end that there. Anything you want to promote or plug before we finish?
I don't know when this will be up, but I am doing a seminar on January 25th on alchemy and Reiki, and how you can really find your pathway to power through Reiki.
And if you had one day left to live, what's the one thing that you would tell the rest of the world?
If you take the time to fall in love with yourself, your entire life will change.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe, turn the bell notifications on, like the episode, and comment below. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's YesKingOliver. Take a look at the other videos to your side. And if you just want to listen to this podcast, you can do so on Apple and Spotify and most other platforms by going to talkwitholiver.com.